Good evening. Let's call this meeting to order, the Champaign County Board. It's Thursday, August 19th, 2010. The time is 7:02. Roll call, please.
Sapp. Here. Schrader. Here. Smucker. Here. Wysocki. Here. Ammons. Here. Anderson.
Here.
Beckett. Here. Benzel. Here. Betts. Here. Carter. Cowart. Dinitz. Here. Gladney.
Present.
James.
Here.
Jay.
Here.
Jones.
Here.
Knott.
Here.
Kurtz.
Here.
Langenheim.
Here.
McGinty.
Here.
Michaels.
Here.
Mosher.
Here.
Nudo.
Here.
O'Connor.
Here.
Richards.
Present.
Rosales.
Here.
Weibel.
Here, we have a quorum. Some of you may have noticed that students are back. So tonight's prayer is a prayer for college students. But maybe we can learn from it too. Teach me to live my life. Teach me to know how to use all the good I have inside of me. Teach me to think right, speak good words, and do good deeds. Teach me to see the good in all. Teach me to share with my fellow human beings in respect and love. Teach me love. Amen. Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Could you excuse me for a minute? That is where it's supposed to be. Okay, would the clerk read the notice of the meeting?
Notice is hereby given that a regular meeting of the County Board, Champaign County, Illinois, will convene on August 19th, 2010, 7 p.m. in the Lyle Childs Meeting Room, Brookins Administrative Center, 1776 East Washington Street, Urbana, Illinois, in said county for the purpose of allowing and ordering payments of claims against the county, receiving and acting upon reports of committees and such other matters as may be brought before said meeting, which said meeting shall continue in session from day to day until the completion of said business.
Move approval.
Moved by Mr. Betts, second by Ms. Wysocki. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Seek approval of the agenda and the addenda.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Betts, second by Mr. Rosales. Discussion? See none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. The date and time of our next regular meetings. On September 7th, there'll be two meetings, one at 5:30, which is legislative budget hearings. Then following that at 7 o'clock, or at a later time if the budget hearings last beyond 7, will be committee of the whole meeting for highway, transportation, county facilities, environment, and land use. Similar meetings will be held on a week later on Tuesday, September 14th, again at 5:30 for legislative budget hearings, and then the regular committee of the whole meeting at 7 or later. Finance, policy, personnel and appointments, justice, and social services. Then our regular county board meetings on Thursday, September 23rd at 7 p.m. Moving on to the consent agenda. Are there any items somebody wishes to take off the consent agenda? Ms. Wysocki.
I don't know if we need to, to remove anything, but I do want to point out that on pages 26 to 33, where we have the public nuisance ordinance, you'll notice that's been followed immediately by the rental habitability ordinance. And I think that was a type or a clerical error because the public nuisance ordinance did in fact get on the consent agenda. The habitability ordinance did not, and that is already listed on the regular agenda. So now that I've thoroughly confused you, just make sure that these are two separate items.
Mr. Beckett.
I think what Mr. Wysocki is saying is that by voting on the consent agenda, we are not approving the item that is on pages 30 through...
Well, you talk about the supporting material, correct?
Pardon?
The supporting material is what you're talking
That's
about?
correct.
Okay.
That is not being enacted by
Right.
voting on the consent agenda.
So the consent agenda itself is okay, the supporting material
Right.
for the consent agenda is incorrect. Okay, thank you for that note. Mr. Nudo.
Clarify that the nuisance.
A microphone, please?
Yes, thank you. The nuisance and the habitability are two separate issues.
Correct.
And so habitability is not on the consent agenda.
That is correct.
That's correct. Okay.
Further discussion? See none, roll call. Oh, we need a motion.
Move approval of the consent agenda.
Moved by Mr. Beckett, second by Mr. McGinty. Roll call.
Sapp.
Yes.
Schrader.
Yes.
Smucker.
Yes.
Wysocki.
Yes.
Ammons.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Beckett.
Yes.
Benzel. Betts. Dennett. Gladney.
Yes.
James.
Yes.
Jay.
Yes.
Jones.
Yes.
Knott.
Yes.
Kurtz.
Yes.
Langenheim.
Yes.
McGinty.
Yes.
Michaels. Mosher.
Yes.
Nudo.
Yes.
O'Connor.
Yes.
Richards.
Yes.
Rosales.
Yes.
Weibel.
Yes, motion carries. Public participation. If anybody wants to speak, please fill out one of these forms. They're in the corner, on the little table next to the door, and bring them up to me. First person, Marilyn Lindholm.
Thank you. Shuffle those pages. Okay. I'm here. Marilyn Lindholm, I'm from Champaign. I've spoken twice before in opposition to the Olympian Drive extension. And the only argument I have heard in support of the extension that I think might be valid or maybe possibly worth considering is the issue of emergency vehicle access to emergency vehicles. Okay. In listening to the arguments back and forth. And if access for emergency vehicles is a real issue, and it can be supported and by a study, a survey, something that shows that it's a real issue, if it is a real issue, then how many other solutions could be presented to solve that specific problem? I think that's a real problem, if it's a real problem. Frequent, infrequent, if it's a real problem, how many other solutions could be presented to solve that specific issue? Maybe an extra exit on 74. I have no idea what could be done. But I would much rather support a specific solution, and I hope the board would too, specific solution to a real problem than this unjustified, just build it because you need something to build, Olympia Drive extension. So I would hope you consider what issues really are possible and what issues should be really addressed. And I say again, I say this every time, but I say again that I honestly think the board does amazing work. I am awfully amazed. And so thanks, seriously.
Mr. Eric Thorsland.
Hello, I'm Eric Thorsland. I'm also here to talk about Olympian Drive. It's on the agenda tonight. It looks like it's an update, so here's my update on Olympian Drive, and where it's been a lot of talk about it, a lot of talk about Olympian Drive. I think I wrote a letter to the editor about it when the Bears were still going to go to the Super Bowl last year. That's how long we've been talking about it. There's been some things said on both sides of the issue. They probably weren't the nicest stuff. I'm probably guilty of some of that myself, and I apologize. I think the board has done a lot of talking about it. We haven't done any action on it here on the board, but a lot of talk. I want to say that going into this, I said it a long time ago, the EDC, the chamber, the people from RPC put on their best clothes. They got on a plane. They went down to Washington. They shook the federal couch, and change fell out. Good on them. It's good that they can go down there right now and find money. And I thank them for doing that. I want them to bring it back up here. We all do. I want to spend it on something worthwhile. The only people I think I can fault in this process, everyone went into it with good intentions. I think both sides, the people who want nothing, the people who want everything, are all thinking of in their mind, what is best for us in the county, with the exception of the spin doctors from St. Louis. I want to say that the process of their meetings that they had and their lack of preparation was appalling. I think it's terrible that we spent money, our tax money got spent on that, to have them come up, be unaware of the effort the county put into things like big, small hall. They didn't even know it happened. Well, I remember sitting in a room in this building here. We had meetings all over the county. I was the only guy in there that wasn't a developer. On the Development Patterns Committee, when we got down into the middle of it, where we were arguing with people. I'm still here. I don't know where they are. And they didn't know anything about it. Vector came in here, charged money, came up from St. Louis. I don't know how they do it down in St. Louis, but up here we do our homework. When you come in and you don't know what's happening, it's either arrogant or ignorant. And I don't like it, and I'm unhappy. And my dad's an air traffic controller, retired. And when he vectors an airplane, he tells it where to go. So I'd be more than happy to vector back to St. Louis and move on. That being said, there's discussion about all kinds of ways to do Olympian Drive. The only logical way, I've said it for a long time, is, and again, we bring up some points about emergency access. If we've got money to build a bridge, let's build a bridge. And let's take Lincoln Avenue and make the straightest possible line for that bridge. That gives us the truck access that we need, S-curves, bends, 90 degrees. Nobody in a truck wants to drive that around. I come in early in the morning, I watch the FedEx trucks get off at Neal, lumber up through the Toys R Us parking lot just to get to market. Fix that problem. Use the money that those guys went down there in their best clothes to get. Do the right thing. I pondered it today, beating on a hay baler that wasn't making hay bales very well. That it's on the agenda tonight, and I'm not sure why. A straw poll, I thought, hey, man, maybe we should ask people to take a straw poll on this. Let the landowners know. Let the people from Vector know where the board stands. I thought, no, maybe that's a bad idea. We let them know where the board stands, they know how to react to that. But you know what? Maybe it's not a bad idea. Maybe we need to get it out there, find out what to do. My goal is to possibly use the money, if we've got it, cross that railroad track, because we need to get those trucks down to 74 in the most direct possible way. And I thank you for your time, and I thank you for your work, and I know it's only going to get harder from here.
Next, we have Laura Huth representing 21 Olympian area landowners.
Good evening. Thanks for the opportunity to present to you tonight. My name is Laura Huth, and I work for Do Good Consulting. We're at 201 West Green in Urbana, and I'm here tonight speaking on behalf of the following 21 clients of mine: Billy and Virginia Ziegler, Joe Behrens and Mary Rose Atkinson, Dave and Gail McKay, William Cope and Mary Calancis, Robert and Linda Carlson, Wes Gerald and Leslie Cooperband, Kathy and Steve Dyson, Janet and Harold Charlo, Howard and Margaret Erlinson, Steve Grierson, and Eugene and Mary Ziegler. And many of my clients are here tonight. Feel that there is good news on the changing project scope regarding Olympian Drive. Where we were once told there was no flexibility on the scope of this project or the use of the grant funds that we have, there obviously now seems to be some. With a relaxation of this previously rigid attitude, we are far more likely to come together and find immediate benefits for the region and the community. The flexibility of the $5 million Illinois Jobs Now grant gives us the opportunity to pursue a project that is truly right for this region. My clients continue to look forward to engaging in conversation and finding solutions for the future of our community. As consideration of this issue continues, one large deficiency in this project continues to exist: a needs analysis. To date, no real independent needs assessment, a study of the demand for this project, has been done. For a $30 million project, or even a more scaled-back Lincoln to Olympian project, undertaking a real need and demand study for such an expenditure is crucial. How could we justify to the taxpayers on whom we are relying to fund this project that we spend their money before conducting a real needs assessment? Would any of us do that ourselves for our businesses or our personal affairs? This should have been done months ago, years ago, really. If we are to continue to discuss this project, studying the need and the demand must happen before any talk of or expenditure on real design happens. The bottom line is that's the conversation we should be having right now. And this is where funds should be focused, first and foremost. We owe it to the taxpayers, to the landowners, and to everyone being asked to vote on this project. That said, my clients understand that the city plans to continue to move forward with a Lincoln to Olympian design pursuit in a sweeping S design fashion. While we appreciate what appears to be a change in focus from the Apollo to 45 connection, the cart continues to be before the horse in this project. We still need a needs assessment for this project scope as well before we can design anything. While my clients feel that a needs assessment should be the focus now, they also would like to go on record regarding a Lincoln to Olympian connection, as long as that appears to be a live project for Urbana, if you will. A few points. The Lincoln Avenue design study that produced the city's proposed sweeping S design is 12 years old. My clients are not opposed to this design being fully studied for demand, need, and return on investment, as well as current environmental, economic, social, and other impacts. However, we do not feel that it is unreasonable or unjustified to request a few more connection options or route options be added to the discussion so that everyone can be assured that we are buying the best, most cost-effective, and least harmful option available to our community today. Certainly, there cannot be one 12-year-old way to connect Lincoln to Olympian. A lot has changed in that region in 12 years. New landowners have moved in, businesses have sprung up, and new state and federal laws have been enacted. Furthermore, new opportunities have arisen. For example, a 3.42-acre site in that region has come for sale, something not available 12 years ago. This property's availability today could help create slightly new route options that reduce the road's impact on over a half dozen homeowners in the path of the current sweeping S design. The new availability of this land further underscores the need for the study of different connecting routes. With the grant money's pending shift, the timing is perfect to undertake such an examination. My clients feel that the public and the landowners in that region, given the grant's flexibility and the new opportunities and changes in that area, are best served by offering more than one 12-year-old design for consideration. They are not interested in starting this process over. They are interested in options that take into account today's realities, opportunities, and limitations, and give people real choices, not solitary options. Thank you.
Is there further public participation? Seeing none, we'll close that. Communications from the board. Mr. Kurtz.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On Monday, I contacted Bill Houlihan at the office of Senator Dick Durbin. My question was, Future Gen 2.0, if we had an interest in 2.0, can we start a dialogue and find out if we would have the qualifications and or the proper geological landmass to house Future Gen 2.0? I received some information back, and this morning received a email from Mr. Houlihan stating, if we have any questions, or please send your letter of interest to Secretary Stephen Chu, Department of Energy, with a carbon copy to Senator Durbin. I feel that Future Gen 2.0 right now is up in the air. There's a big question mark as to where the facility and the project will be located, and I certainly feel that Champaign County should, and this board should, at least open a dialogue to see if we have any options for that, and I asked the chair to write that letter.
Mr. Kurtz, here's what I can do. I can investigate whether Champaign County is suitable for that project, and I will report back to the board.
That's, again, the information I'd like to receive. I don't have that information.
Well, I'll look into that, and then I will present it to the board.
Thank you.
Further communications. Mr. Langenheim.
I'd just like to clue you in. I was in the Urbana Public Library today. There is a new book out by a professor on the University of Illinois. It's the history of the town of Herrin. Herrin is in Williamson County. Williamson County is completely mined out, I think, according to this book at any rate. I think you might find it interesting reading in light of the development that's being proposed in the eastern end of the county.
Further communications. Seeing none, let's move on to approval of the minutes for July 22nd, 2010. Moved by Ms. Amons.
Second.
Second by Mr. James. Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor? All opposed, motion carries. Standing committee reports, environment and land use. Ms. Wysocki.
I move the adoption of ordinance number 867, which enables the county to adopt the rental habitability ordinance for the county.
Second.
Second by Mr. Betts. Discussion. Mr. Wysocki, you want to say anything about it first? You're the mover.
Well, to summarize the essence of this ordinance, what it would mean, what it has to do with is the relationship between landlords and tenants in situations outside of the out in the county, especially in regards to the upkeep and care of the property. So the act would provide that if landlords do not make timely repairs requested by the tenants could then make their own repairs and charge some of the cost of the repairs against the rent up to a certain amount. But the county must have an ordinance that requires the repairs, and the rental habitability ordinance would establish that requirement.
Mr. James.
Well, I'd like to make a motion to defer this till the next meeting for the reason that after reading this and talking to several people, including the zoning department, that we really have an ordinance that does nothing that's already covered by state laws. We were in hopes that our zoning department would have an active enforcement tool in this, and that's the only thing that we're objecting to at this point. Otherwise, we support the ordinance and the things that it tries to do for the outlying areas, but we would like to sit down and defer this. I'm making a motion to defer it until we can work out the enforcement tool in there. Otherwise, it's just going to be another ordinance that lays on a shelf and collects dust.
Mr. James, I'm going to ask for a clarification. You want to defer to the next county board meeting?
I would say yes, so it could be discussed in the committee of the whole before the next county board meeting.
Mr. Beckett?
Then it should be sent to the committee.
You should, yeah. It actually motion to be
Okay.
sent it back to committee.
Thanks for the correction.
That's what you want?
Yes, sir.
Second by Mr. Nudo. So the motion now is to send us back to committee. And that committee meeting, I can tell you, would be on September 7th. Mr. Beckett.
I have a question. Mr. Betts, you know more about this than any of the rest of us on the board. Is there a difference between having this ordinance and not having it vis-a-vis state law? I know you cited that case, that Jack Spring case.
Go ahead, Mr. Beckett.
Thank you, Mr. Beckett. There is a difference. We do have statewide repair and deduct in Illinois that allows folks to give notice to a landlord. The landlord has X number of days to make the repairs, and then the tenant can repair up to a half month's rent and not to exceed $500. Incorporated areas such as City of Urbana, City of Chicago, Bloomington, Normal have had repair and deduct for many, many years. The ordinance that we have defines at least minimal habitability standards for the county, so that an individual who is either engaged in repair and deduct or in a constructive eviction case, which is the Jack Spring versus Little situation, has something to say this is the public policy in Champaign County, that heat shall be provided, electricity shall be provided, plumbing shall be provided. So you have a code. It doesn't necessarily have to be enforced. It'd be ideal if it were, but you have that as a basis under the common law approach to repair and deduct and the common law approach to constructive eviction. This gives you the objective standard of what habitability is.
Follow up, if I may.
Go ahead.
My second question is, it seems that the intent of the motion on the floor is to have this come back to us through the Committee of the Whole in September for action in September. Is there any disadvantage to adopting this in September as opposed to adopting it today?
I don't, are you asking me?
Yeah.
Personally, I don't see a huge disadvantage of adopting if the intent is to actually create an objective enforcement standard and a individual in charge of enforcing like you would have in the city of Champaign or the city of Urbana, a zoning officer or a building code officer, that would absolutely strengthen it. I don't know where the money is going to come to assign that individual in this county. I've never seen anyone. We're behind, as far as I know, on the enforcement of our zoning ordinance right now.
Go ahead, Mr.
If I may finish, thank you. Well, I guess I'll support deferral in light of that response. But it seems to me that we need to get off the dime. We need to do it or not do it. At the Committee of the Whole, I was under the impression that we actually were going to receive something for us to vote on tonight, and we didn't receive it. So that disappoints me, but maybe it's so complex that we do need the additional time, so I will support deferral.
Mr. Mosier.
I'd like some clarification on whether this is going to apply to unincorporated towns like Longview and Seymour, or is that their problem? Can John clarify
That's a good question. Mr. Hall, can you answer that?
Well, that's a legal question. I can't think of a good reason why it wouldn't, but again, that's really a legal question. Longview gets the benefit of county zoning, and I just don't know if they would have to do something to make this apply within their jurisdiction or not. That's a good question for the state's attorney.
Well, I'd like some clarification on it, because that makes a big difference about how you're going to ever enforce it if you got to take all that into account beside the rural area that's outside.
Well, we can try to get an answer to that.
Mr. Richards.
Chair, I'd like Mr. James to explain for us what enforcement mechanisms beyond repair and deduct that he's looking to add to this.
I have to.
Mr. James, so you'll
defer.
Okay, Mr. Nuno, go ahead.
First of all, I want to apologize to my good friend, Mr. Beckett. I did provide some dialogue with planning and enforcement back on Tuesday, and what basically, if you take a look at point 4 under enforcement, I had changed it, and Stan helped me with this. That the
what page you talk about, sir?
You're going to make me do this.
Yes, I am. Page 10?
Page 10, item 4, enforcement, was to read, the minimum maintenance requirements for habitability established by this ordinance are not enforced by Champaign County. And then the new dialogue was, with the exception of repairs more than $500 or one-half the monthly rent, whichever is less, on any Illinois State Fire Marshal's life safety code issues such as referenced in this ordinance in the following sections. B, exterior and interior stairs, which is egress. H, 1 and 2, plumbing and plumbing fixtures. I, heating. J, appliances. K, 1, 2, 3, electrical system and equipment. Here's where I think we need more enforcement. The Illinois state statute calls for anything under $500 or half the rent, whichever is less. My items, or Stan and my items, were dealing with life safety issues, which will invariably cost more than $500. If you have a heating system go down, you have nothing that will be enforceable between the parties, as I feel it should be enforced by the enforcement people in planning and code. So John and I and Stan had a dialogue back and forth. He got the state's attorney involved. I have not heard, and neither has Stan, as to what the objection was, so that's why we're proposing that we have a special committee. You know, Stan and I own own and manage somewhere between 650 apartments. We've been involved in this for over 20 years. Stan longer because he's older. So, we just want to have the ability to, we want to have the ability to work with the state's attorney to overcome these issues and have some teeth in this over $500. We have no objections to the nuisance ordinance, which Mr. Betts put forward. We just want to have the ability to take a look at this and see what we can do together to get some teeth in it. Now, I hear from some board members that we're backlogged on enforcement anyway. We've got a lot of complaints that aren't done. This is not a barking dog or a 6-inch high grass issue. This is life safety. This is, we've been, how many years has the county been in existence? I mean, can we wait one more month to get what we want to get right? And that's all we're asking for. I do apologize again to my good friend, Mr. Beckett, for not having this available, but we ran into a roadblock. And actually, he knew that because I sent him the documentation. But I just want a shot at allowing all parties, I think the ELUC chair, Stan, myself, Tom Betts, the chair, and anybody else who's interested, sit in before the next committee of the whole meeting and see if we can iron this out.
Ms. Wysocki?
The state's attorney has entered the room, and I would like her to comment on this enforcement issue, if she could.
Christina, please.
Our office's position on this is that we have a statute here that really confers a right on tenants. It's not about the county enforcing anything. It just confers a right on a tenant. And it sets a specific amount. And anything that we add above and beyond that, it is vulnerable to challenge because, as you know, as a county, we are an agent of the state, and we only have the power that is explicitly conferred on us. So I am prepared to defend, if any of our ordinances are challenged, I am prepared to defend anything that you choose to do, but that is what we are up against. Language of the statute doesn't talk about county enforcement. It talks about a right that is conferred on the tenant that then the tenant has against the landlord. So.
Go ahead, Mr. Newell.
Yes, one of the questions back and forth with Mr. Hall was, could he find within state statute, Illinois State Fire Marshal's codes, et cetera, everything that we had listed under life safety? And he sent back to me the codes of every one of them that is enforceable at the county level with state statute. So I just question whether that I would believe that it's unenforceable if there are codes in place right now that would allow it. I can give them to you. He's given them to me.
Mr. Chairman.
Christina, you going to say something about that, or?
I know that the statute refers to basically the rules and regulations adopted by the State Fire Marshal pursuant to the Act to regulate the storage, transportation, sale, and use of gasoline and volatile oils. Is that what you're referring to?
Well, under B, exterior and interior stairs, it's relevant to code NFPA 101. Under H, 1 and 2 plumbing and plumbing fixtures, Illinois Plumbing Code 77, Illinois Administrative Code. I'd be happy to give this to you. I had him research this, and I really do believe if we can work together, I'm happy that you would challenge anybody who would challenge the enforcement of it, but I think we're okay.
I know. I don't think that this section on the use of gasoline and volatile oils, I don't know why it refers to that specifically, but I'm not sure that covers us. I'd be happy to look into that.
Well, that's all we're asking for next.
Okay, let's go to Ms. Wysocki.
Well, I was just going to suggest, because somehow this doesn't seem the appropriate forum to be talking specifically about amendments to a resolution that's on the table. And I would propose that next week, Mr. Hall, myself, Mr. Nudo, and/or Mr. James, along with Christina, sit down and try to look at these issues and see what we can come up with for the September Committee of the Whole meeting.
Question, would that be any conflict of Open Meetings Act with that group of people?
No.
Okay. Well, you talk about meeting outside the Committee of the Whole. We still have standing committees we have to follow that. Okay, Mr. James, you may speak now. Thank you for your patience.
Every time and I know legal always has to have a good opinion, and that's fine, but laws are always made and always changing, and other cities have done so, and they look at it, and somehow we work around it, and we've done a lot of looking at issues before. I always say nothing's in stone. If there's a need and we can work around it and be everybody on board with it and make sure we are legal, but no matter how legal we are, someone's always going to challenge it. I see it all the time. And then as far as zoning, when I hear that, who's going to pick up the work or who's going to do this, well, several years ago, this county was facing a boom, and they did all right. They did what they had to do, and I know manpower's probably shrunk, but it's shrunk everywhere. You just step up, you start doing a little bit more, and you prioritize. As Al said, we're not going to see a rash of complaints. The only thing I would like to see is this county have an active interest in its outlying areas, and by passing an ordinance that just basically tacks on to the state statutes, all you're doing is passing a proclamation, in my view, that really doesn't do anything. All we're saying is, yes, we support this, and here's some more things that you can add on to it, but we're really not going out and looking at what the tenants or anybody's talking about. We're just asking on the life safety issues that we become involved, that we allow those that are sharing in the tax base to have a say-so and meet with the county folks one-on-one.
Mr. Langenheim.
I hear that we're proposing to defer this because this is not an adequate ordinance. I'd like to hear about who and how we're going to improve this ordinance and in what way.
Well, I think we've had some of that discussion, but of course, it would take a perhaps a full committee meeting to do that. Is there further discussion?
Call the roll.
Mr. O'Connor.
Thank you. I was just going to suggest maybe the next committee, the whole meeting, would be a good place to discuss
That's okay.
this.
Now
And if there's any question on the sidebars about the Open Meetings Act, perhaps we should invite Tom or his representative to sit in on it. Wouldn't that get us in the clear?
No.
Okay, the motion on the floor is to send the motion the resolution back to committee.
I request a roll call.
Mr. Betts requests a roll call. Does anybody else want a roll call? We got Mr. O'Connor, anybody else? Okay, Mr. Richards. Let's have a roll call vote, please.
Sapp.
Yes.
Schrader.
Yes.
Smucker.
No.
Wysocki.
No.
Ammons.
No.
Anderson.
No.
Beckett.
Yes.
Benzel.
Yes.
Betts.
No.
Carter. Oh, sorry. Dinitz.
Yes.
Gladney.
No.
James.
Yes.
Jay.
Yes.
Jones.
Yes.
Knott.
Yes.
Kurtz. Langenheim.
No.
McGinty.
Yes.
Michaels.
Yes.
Mosier.
Yes.
Nudo.
Yes.
O'Connor.
Yes.
Richards.
Yes.
Rosales.
Yes.
That would be a yes, I believe.
Wyville.
Yes, motion carries. Going back to committee. Anything else, Ms. Wysocki?
No, that's
All
it.
right, thank you. Highway and Transportation. Ms. Court isn't here. Mr. Carter's not here. Mr. Beckett, would you be the mover of the first item, please?
I move approval of the letter of support for Village of Mahomet, Champaign County Forest Preserve Lake of the Woods Transportation Enhancement Grant.
Second by Mr. Knott. I point out it says distributed. Do we have it here with us? Oh, sorry. Let's see. Look for the Muhammad M letterhead rather. Discussion. Mr. Sapp.
The motion indicates approval of a letter of support. Is there a letter? I don't see a letter. I mean, there's some information here about the project.
Mr. Blue, could you address that, please? I think he's requesting permission for a letter of support.
Yeah, that's, we're basically requesting permission, as Chair said, for a letter of support from the Chairman of the Board supporting this project that the Village of Mahomet is proposing through the Illinois Transportation Enhancement Program. I apologize, this didn't come through the committee because I literally found out about this on August 12th, which was a week ago today, that they were applying for this. Mr. Mart called me and asked me if the county would be supportive of the project and let them use our right-of-way along Lake of the Woods Road in order to construct a portion of this trail. And I didn't deem it appropriate for me to give him permission through my office, so I felt it was appropriate to bring it to the board, and that's why it's here.
Mr. Sapp, go ahead.
Well, I did have a question, Jeff, on why it didn't come to committee, but you explained that. I guess you indicate you didn't find out till August 12th. Representatives from District 1 were not aware of it. I seen it on the agenda for a letter of support, not knowing what the letter was and not seeing the indication of what the project was until this evening. I find it a little concerning that we can make a decision right now without all, how this thing's going to be designed and supporting something that we don't know the impacts. For example, I do know that you have an agreement with the township for snow removal. What is this project along that road going to do for that snow removal? Where are we going to put it? How's it going to affect? And so, being from District 1, it may be a great project, but I think it's a little rushed.
The reason it's brought before the county board at this time, my understanding is that the applications are due at the end of August. So I'm as rushed as you are. I didn't know about it until about a week ago. I did tell Bob and the village that if indeed the county board was supportive of this project, we in no way would finance it, nor would we maintain the bike path, walking path, whatever you want to call it, in the future. There would have to be a maintenance agreement between them and the county that they would maintain it, and did not offer any financial support.
I assume maintenance would also include snow removal?
If it's going to be open in the winter, they'd have to remove the snow, I would assume, yes.
Mr. Jay, do you have a question?
Yes, Jeff, as I looked at the map, I, like Larry, didn't know about this till tonight. A little disappointing because I'm right across the street from Bob's office. This overpass that goes over 74 Lake of the Woods Road that this is along is a disaster in of itself.
Yeah.
Now, and you've just indicated, thank goodness, that we don't have money to do this. What are we going to do about that?
I talked to Craig Emberton, who is a gentleman, I think Mr. Dennis has had conversations with him at the Illinois Department of Transportation in Paris. They do have plans to replace that overpass in their 5-year capital improvement plan. At the time that they would replace that overpass, if this project were to get funded, they have agreed to put a bicycle pedestrian facility on the side of the bridge. The only part of the bridge which they would pay for and which they would build would actually be basically the bridge overpass plus the approach pavement. So you're talking about 30 feet probably each side of the bridge, and the bridge itself would be funded through IDOT when they replace that bridge. All of the other monies and everything else would come through this grant and through the Village of Mahomet.
Mr. Sapp.
Well, and I guess if IDOT is looking at a replacement of that bridge in 5 years, any work that's done on it now is through a grant that's offered now is pretty much going to be tore out.
There wouldn't be anything done on the bridge at this time by this project. They would wait until the bridge was properly constructed with the path on the edge of the bridge.
Yeah, Bob, come up and give us an idea of how this progressed or what his thoughts is on the project.
Sure.
Is he here?
Bob?
Hi, I'm Bob Mart. I'm the village planner with the Village of Mahomet. The ITEP grants come in a varied cycle through municipalities and state and county other governments. This year's cycle, we were notified by one of our council people in the late June. We took it to our village board on July 20th. They authorized us to proceed with preliminary research. We did, at that time, contact Champaign County Forest Preserve District if they were interested in participating as a joint applicant in this grant. The grant deadline is August 30th, so I apologize for not bringing it to the attention of our local county board representatives and to Mr. Blue until such time as we had enough information available to present the general alignment and some general cost estimates for the village, and after our contact with IDOT on their 5-year plan and their need to replace that bridge within the next probably 2 or 3 years.
Mr. Jay.
If I could have a follow-up, Bob, the plan to do this, if the grant's received, what kind of a time frame are we looking at?
Well, we're actually looking at, if the grant's received, right now the grant is an 80-20 grant, and it's very competitive. There's no guarantee that the Village of Mahomet or the Champaign County Forest Preserve would receive those grant funds. Basically, we're asking in our grant for all of the preliminary engineering from McDougal Road through Barber Park from U.S. Route 150 and then on to the main entrance at Lake of the Woods Road, and then a subsequent request within that same application for construction of the principal trail from US 150 over the overpass at I-74 and then to the Elk Lake entrance that's currently closed at the Lake of the Woods Forest Preserve.
If I may follow up. Then I'm back to my original concern. First of all, don't misunderstand this. I'm actually for this program. 2 things concern me. The county doesn't have any money. I'm told by a little bird across the road that the village doesn't have a lot of money. So I'm not sure where your 20% is coming, but as long as the county's not obligated, I don't guess we really care. But what are we going to do about, if you're going to put this up to that bridge, what are we going to do to get these folks across the bridge till the new bridge gets put in?
Well, we're still going to have to coordinate this with IDOT, and we're not even sure we're going to get the grant. It's it's very competitive. With our experience with IDOT, half the time they say that we're responsible for building the embankment and sending the road, the bridge, or the multipurpose pathway across the bridge. That was not the case when we reconstructed Illinois 47. They did actually put in the bike lane on the bridge and the approaches up to that bridge. So our experiences are different with the state. In this case, we have a precedent on Illinois 47 that they did, in fact, extend the multipurpose pathway up and over the bridge.
Thank you.
Mr. Langenheim.
How heavy is the traffic on that bridge now, roughly?
I'd have to defer to the county engineer, but unfortunately, it's a curving bridge through that area, and it's very dangerous. And there are a number of children who utilize that bridge back and forth. And right now, it's a significant safety hazard for people who, whether they walk or bicycle across that portion of the trail. And fortunately for the village and for the county, the Champaign County Lake of the Woods Forest Preserve is a tourism destination, and that's something we want to encourage those folks to come off our existing multipurpose trails and get across the highway or the interstate in a safe manner to those entrances. So.
Mr. Schrader.
I have a question about, I know back when I was a Forest Reserve Board, there was a master plan to get a bike and walking path to the Riverbend Forest Preserve. Is the Barber Park juncture there, is that going to be able to get in the future down to Riverbend Forest Preserve?
This is a segment of that overall plan. Right now, we could go through the Barber Park floodplain and then into the Sangamon River Greenway that's owned and maintained by the Village of Mahomet. The alternate route is south through McDougal Road to across the Buckthorn Bridge to South Mahomet Road and Deer Run, and then through Country Ridge subdivision to get you onto Mid-America Road and then that way. But ideally, we'd get it off street and make it add the amenities to that trail.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions? All right, thank you. Further discussion? Okay, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. The next item is the Olympia Drive project update by Mr. Blue. A couple weeks ago, Mr. Blue approached me and asked to give an update to the county board, and we agreed this would be a good time to do it, so here he is. We'd ask that defer questions until he's done speaking, please.
Like Chair said, this is an update. I'm basically bringing back information that we've talked about at a number of our stakeholder meetings as well as our roundtable events. I know that at the roundtable meetings, there were 8 county board members who were able to attend, which leaves a number of you who weren't able to attend and weren't able to hear the conversations that we had at those roundtable meetings. And I don't know if you've talked about them amongst yourselves since then, but I just wanted to kind of bring you up to date with what occurred in the roundtable meetings and the stakeholder meetings, and where we're going to take that information and what we're going to try to do with it. There are some other representatives from some of the other entities here, Bill Gray from the City of Urbana, Dennis Schmidt and Dave Clark from the City of Champaign, and Dave Spiker and Darla Latham from IDOT. And at the end, if there's conversation and questions, I wanted to have them here because they hold a large piece of this pie as well. So I wanted to have them here so they can answer questions that maybe I don't have the answers to. But as you all know, there was a location and design study back in '97 on Olympian Drive. In 2003, Olympian Drive Phase 1 was completed between Prospect Avenue and Apollo. And then 2008, additional Olympian Drive construction was completed between Mattis Avenue and Legacy Avenue. Right now we're at the point where, as you know, Olympian Drive dead ends on the west side of the railroad tracks. And a lot of this information that I'm giving to you, I sent an email to Chair Weibel and attached to it the Olympian Drive's website. There is a Olympian Drive website now where there's a lot of good information on there. So if you're looking for maps, you're looking for studies, whether they be from 1997 or the designs that are going on now, you can certainly go to olympiandriveproject.com, and you can also see the presentations that were made at the roundtable meetings as well at olympiandrive.com. So we had 4 roundtable meetings. It was kind of the beginning, that and our stakeholder interviews, which were held with 20 different individuals. It was kind of the beginning of our public engagement process. Those roundtable meetings were held July 27th, July 29th. We had roundtable meetings with business owners, property owners, public officials, and elected officials. The things that were talked about at these roundtable meetings, we showed the preferred alternative for Olympian Drive, which I'm sure you've all seen over and over again, and is on the Olympian Drive website. Through those stakeholder meetings, there were a number of things that came out. Those were individual meetings that were held that lasted an hour or so to talk individually with stakeholders, which could have been businessmen, could have been elected officials, could have been people who own property in the area. Some of the things that came out of those meetings were to look at North Lincoln Avenue, minimize the impacts to the environment, minimize impacts to landowners and so forth. Talked about limiting the access points along Olympian Drive whenever you build a major roadway that's going to have significant traffic. You don't want to allow multiple entrances onto the roadway. They talked about the speed of the roadway, the noise, the right-of-way width, safety, and the funding of the projects. So all that information was put together, and we went to the roundtable meetings. We had 103 participants at those roundtable meetings. At those roundtable meetings, there was a presentation made by Hanson Engineers, who is the consultant engineering firm that the City of Urbana has hired to be the consultant. They also did the original study for Olympian Drive, so they were a good choice to make because they have all the past history with the project. We asked some questions in the roundtable meetings. We asked, the project will be successful if, and we left a blank. If what? What concerns do you have about Olympian Drive? What other community issues, development, or planning activities should be considered when we're considering the design of the Olympian Drive? We looked at different design options. during those roundtable meetings. We talked about what the roadway would look like. Should it be a ditch section where you have a big ditch in between the two roads, assuming that someday it will be 4 lanes? Should we have a flush median, which is what we have kind of on Windsor between Lincoln and Philo Road, where there's really no median in the middle? Or should we have a raised median like they're building right now out on Windsor Drive out past Myers, where there's actually a curbed area in between the opposing traffic lanes? And we looked at all the advantages and disadvantages of those and asked people to give us their input on what the roadway should look like. We talked about whether or not, if the ultimate design is 4 lanes, should we, at this point, purchase the right-of-way for 4 lanes? Should we build the embankment for 4 lanes? Or should we just build 2 lanes and leave the other future 2 lanes as farm ground? There's advantages and disadvantages to both of those. If you build the embankment for 4 lanes now, you're taking advantage of prices now. If you do not build the embankment for 4 lanes now, obviously you're leaving that property there for the farmers to use until such time that it's needed. Talked about bicycles. Do we need to have a separate path for bicycles on the Olympian Drive project? Should the path be on the shoulder like it is on Windsor Road out by Meadowbrook Park? Or should there be no bicycle path at all along that roadway? Talked about a pedestrian accommodation. Should there be sidewalks? Should there be a multi-use path? And I've had conversations with some county board members that say, okay, you're getting the cart before the horse here. We're asking a lot of questions about the design of Olympian Drive, and we don't even know if Olympian Drive is actually going to occur. My answer to that is this. When you do the original study of Olympian Drive back in 1997, they made a lot of assumptions when they came up with that cost estimate. They made an assumption that we're going to build the embankments, we're going to have a very big bridge, there's not going to be pedestrian accommodations, there's not going to be a bicycle path. All of these things were things that were kind of outside of the original scope of that design study. So until we really know what the community wants, we can't really put our finger on a real hard number as to what this project's going to cost. And everybody wants to know, what's it going to cost, what's it going to cost? How much money do you have from here, how much money do you have from there? And until we ask these questions, even though it seems like they're questions that need to be asked 6 months from now, if we get to that phase in the project, until we ask these questions, we really can't define a scope for the project, and we really can't define a project cost. So, the design study, when you do a design study, is much more detailed than the original study was. And the location study, as I said, made some assumptions, and we needed to either validate those assumptions or we needed to understand that those assumptions weren't valid, and we need to look at something different based on the original location study. One of the big things, as you probably all have heard, that came out of the stakeholder meetings, the roundtable meetings, and all the discussions that have been held in every coffee shop in Champaign County is that North Lincoln Avenue, is a project that people feel is a very good project to get behind. When we asked during the roundtable meetings, we asked them to rank the projects. We said Project A was Olympian Drive from Apollo over to Lincoln, and Project B was from Lincoln out to 45. Project C is on the west end over by the Clearview subdivision, and then we termed North Lincoln Avenue as Project X. And we asked them to rank those projects in order, and average ranking of those projects, Project A, which is over the railroad tracks, came up with an average ranking of 1.16. Project X, which was North Lincoln, was second with an average ranking of 2.27. Project B, which is Lincoln to 45, had a 3.02, and then the west end had a 3.44. So of the people that were at the roundtable meetings, it kind of shows you the general feel of those people that Olympian to Lincoln, that link, trying to get people across the railroad tracks and down into the area that's being developed on Lincoln Avenue, is the way that, the project is starting to steer towards now. So another question that was asked about the Lincoln Avenue Olympian Drive connection is, should there be a roundabout there? Do we want to put in a traditional intersection? A lot of people have a lot of great things to say about roundabouts. They're being used out east. They were being used up in Minnesota, where I was before I came here. So do we want to look at a roundabout there? Do we want to have a standard intersection there? We also talked about things from wetlands to detention basins to recreational and park areas, landscaping, trees. All that stuff was talked about in those roundtable meetings. So we are in the process right now of putting all that information that we gathered at those roundtable meetings into a form that is easily readable and understandable by the public and by the people that were at those roundtable meetings. And on August the 25th, we are going to have a combined roundtable meeting, which would bring all of the people back who were invited to the 4 initial roundtable meetings and present all of that information to those folks. So if you can make it on August the 25th, I would really encourage you to come to that combined roundtable meeting and hear all of the ideas and the thoughts that the community and the people at those 4 roundtables had in the original roundtable meetings. And after that meeting, we have a real desire to get out into the community and go to the Rotary Club, the Kiwanis Club, whatever other kind of organizations would ask us to come and just give them information about the Olympian Drive project. Let people in this community make a decision, make an informed decision. That's my opinion, what we're trying to do. I know there has been talk about vector communication coming out of St. Louis, and maybe we should have hired somebody in town and they're spin doctors or what have you. But what we're trying to do is inform the public. We're trying to engage the public. We're trying to gather information so that when and if this project gets built, we build it so that the community actually gets behind it and says, that's a project that I had a piece of. That's a project that I feel comfortable with. That's a project that I'm proud of. A lot of times engineers, and you've been in engineers' offices, they sit in a little cubicle and they design the road project and they pop out and they go, here it is, we're going to build it. That's not the process we're trying to use. We're trying to use a process where we invite people in. Is everybody going to be happy? No. There's no way to build a project where everybody's happy. But as long as we've taken everybody's input and tried to do the best that we can for the overall community, I think that's our job as engineers, both for the county, the city, and the state. And then after those community outreach meetings, we'll have a public meeting and invite the total public, just like you do in any meeting where you post it in the newspaper and see how many people show up and talk about the design and talk about where this project's headed. And then that will lead us into the design phase of the project. So that is kind of the timeline that we're on, kind of where we started, what we've done to this point, and where the steering committee is kind of steering this project, if you will. So I wanted to bring that information to you so that everybody had the same information and was talking the same language. And please, if there is any information that you're looking for Olympian Drive, if it's not on the website and you can't find it, please get a hold of me and we'll try to get you whatever information we can.
Questions for Mr. Blue? Mr. Knott.
Yes, I don't know if it's so much a question as just my observation of this over the last, at least since January. I can't think of any other single issue since I've been here in the 10 years that facts have changed, opinions change. I don't even know how to say this all succinctly because it's just, the whole thing bothers me so much. It's just like nothing has since I've been on this board. And, let me cut to the chase on part of it. The demonization of some of the folks that are here tonight is absolutely uncalled for, and especially by one particular elected official in this, not in this room, but and I'm not criticizing you, Jeff. You just happened to open the topic up, so I'm going to talk about it. That's absolutely uncalled for. And I got to be honest, the more that demonization takes place, the less likely I think a lot of us in here are willing to participate in that kind of a dialogue and a project. You know, it's like the whole thing started back asswards from day one. And I'm not blaming you, Jeff. Again, you just happen to be at the podium. But I guess I can't express enough my disappointment in how this has gone down. And I think the other thing that's bugged me a lot is the way the county has been approached by other entities within the community. In other words, it's just seemed like it was just going to be a given that, you know, approve, and, oh, yeah, we got to get the county board's approval. Well, we're an equal partner in this, especially when it comes to the condemnation of farms that have been there for 100-plus years and some of our taxpayer road money. That's bugged me, too. And I know I speak for others in here, too. I won't name names, as you can speak for yourselves, but this whole process has just been a train wreck, in my opinion. And I applaud Jeff for, I know he's tried to keep it on track, because I have a lot of respect for what you've done out here. But in a collective sense, wow. It's not the way I would have approached it from the outset. And perhaps there's a lot of lessons learned here for the future, but I really think, and I'm glad Jeff mentioned this, of stepping back and trying to get the dialogue from those that are affected and not just a demonization effort, because I think that takes us nowhere. You know, in terms of options of to 45 to Lincoln, that Jeff outlined, you know, a couple of us said from the beginning, it makes absolutely no sense to go to 45 if you don't have Lincoln connected to Olympian. Now, I can't begin to state what the correct way to do that, to get it over the railroad, et cetera. That's something that the professionals would have to do. But I'm glad we finally have come to the point where we can talk about that, because some of us have mentioned that from the very beginning. And I think even some of the folks that own the land out there have said, we're willing to engage you, just don't railroad us through, or in this case, highway us through, for the conversations. And that's what's, I tell you, I think I made a concerted effort in this early on to slow it down, to slow this process down, and I'll never regret that. And I caught a lot of flack from it, not from my colleagues here, but from those on the outside. And I tell you, I'm glad I did, because the longer we went, at times, it's like the less clear the project became. And I'm glad we finally slowed it down to get some clarity. So with all that said, I do have one major question, and that's something that was floating around today, was there seems to be a concern, perhaps from Springfield or IDOT, that if the dialogue in the community stays perhaps not entirely in favor of this project, that the dollars could perhaps go elsewhere. And I don't know if anyone can comment on that or if has heard that. It certainly did happen with the Mahomet, 3-lane interchange. It did go elsewhere. So that is a concern to me. So, I mean, I guess that's why I emphasize the dialogue piece of this whole thing. The county is an equal partner, and Jeff has seen to it that we are. But I hope others in the community hear that as well, because I think it's only fair that the constituents we represent, which is the entire county, have that opportunity to weigh in fairly.
Jeff, you want to respond in any way?
Dave, do you have anything you can clarify with the IDOT position? I brought these guys for a reason, because I don't have all the answers. I always feel my job is not to know everything, but to know everybody that does. So I brought them along with me.
Dave, please state your
I'll
name.
have to lower the mic down, right?
Dave, please state your name again and your position.
David Spiker. I'm with the Illinois Department of Transportation. I'm the District 5 local roads engineer out of Paris. My role in the project is basically the funding that comes from the state is administered through my office. My office will also oversee the review and approval of the project development report, the Phase 1 engineering documents, and the plans, and once it gets to construction, the seeing it on to letting will all go through my office. So that's how I'm related to the project. Regarding the funding, regarding the Illinois Jobs Now capital money that is out there, that is currently under agreement with the city of Urbana. Our indication from Springfield is that They are willing to entertain a request from your local legislators, Senator Frex and Representative Jacobson, to move those funds to a different project if that's what those representatives, what those legislators would like to do. In order for that to happen, right, they're going to have to send in a letter requesting that. We would have to revise the current agreement that is currently in place with the city of Urbana to potentially reduce that funding. We would also have to have a new agreement for a new project for Lincoln Avenue or another project if that's what's selected. All that would have to go through the review and approval process. So risks that are out there, that was kind of your question, right? The risk would potentially be you do have an agreement now for funding that is in place, that is signed, that is executed. In order to do something different, you're going to have to amend agreements, get out of agreements, and get new ones. I have no indication that that's necessarily going to be a problem, but it is something that's going to have to occur. So,
Mr. Kurtz?
Thank you. I go back, and I think everybody in this room knows where I stand on the Olympia Drive to 45. That's been said over and over and over again. I do have some concerns, but I do like the idea very much, and I think this board, maybe a consensus on that, has been to open a dialogue about Lincoln Avenue connecting to Olympia. Now, we do have, and I want to continue this in a few questions, that $16 million for the bridge, correct?
Absolutely. That is in the Illinois Commerce Commission's 5-year plan.
So we have that money, okay?
I can't say we have it in our pocket. It's in their plan. I just want to clarify that.
If we redo these agreements and we then agree to move those dollars on a new project to Lincoln, I think you might find much more reception, positive reception from this board. I talked with Jeff, Cameron Moore, and Bill Gray months ago concerning the program in a meeting with Mr. Langenheim at the time. And our question was, why not Lincoln Avenue at that time? And at that time, I was told by Mr. Gray that there were no plans for Lincoln Avenue to go towards that project. Obviously now, we see a change in attitude and a change in possible project.
You want me to address that?
Yeah, I want to know that, is the city of Urbana willing to look at that change and write that letter for this new project? That's my first question.
Okay, can I just quickly, when you start talking about money, you're throwing around 16 million, 27 million, those kind of numbers get big and they kind of get cloudy and so forth.
Jeff, that was the number you...
Right, no, I'm not saying those aren't good numbers. I'm not saying those aren't good numbers. But let me explain from what I believe from Dave, and he can correct me if I'm wrong. The $5 million in Illinois Jobs now is with the city of Urbana for the Olympian Drive project, and that money was specifically stated to be for design engineering and right-of-way, correct?
Or construction.
Right. But it isn't a stretch in that agreement to use it for construction, for Olympian Drive, okay? $16 million is kind of the number. I mean, when you talk about Olympian Drive from Apollo to Lincoln, 90% of that job is the bridge. Because once you get off the ground, get up, and get back down, you've pretty much taken up 90% of that alignment just with the bridge. So $16 million has always been the number we've talked about for the bridge. Currently, through the Illinois Commerce Commission, they will give us 60% of the $16 million. So you got $9.6 million right there, okay? You add the $5 million of the Illinois Jobs now you're up to $14.6 million. We have $2.5 million, correct me if I'm wrong on that, Darla, in the CUAT's 5-year plan. Add all those numbers together, we got $16.1 million. that can build pretty, I mean, these are numbers that we've used all along, that can pretty well build Olympian Drive. Okay, then if you want to take that money and move it off of Olympian and put it on Lincoln, now somebody's got to come up with the shortfall on Olympian. So it's kind of like you're just moving stuff around. You don't necessarily have to move that money to Lincoln to make it all happen. You can move it there, but then you're going to have to come up with some other number, some other money for Olympian. So you got $16 million basically. It just depends on where that, whatever's left out of that $5 million is going to go. And where the $2.5 million that we have through this STU funds, that can be moved around based on a QOTS vote in the policy committee.
Okay. I have some concern about some rumors that I've been hearing, that Urbana will take some of this $5 million and go out and purchase a right-of-way land before the board has a chance to do anything about it and go around the board. I'd like to get a confirmation for that. Is Urbana planning on taking some of this $5 million without any guarantee that Olympia Drive will be?
I don't think Mr. Blues should answer something for Urbana. That's an Urbana.
Do you feel comfortable answering that or have
Mr. Gray does
information on that,
not,
Bill?
you could answer it if you want to. It's up to you. You don't have to.
First of all, there's been no discussion with our city council as to what we would actually do. We have asked the question, can any part of that $5 million go towards right-of-way acquisition? As you heard from IDOT, Mr. Spiker, the answer is yes. If there's a willing seller, can the city of Urbana singly go out and purchase that land? The answer is yes.
Well, the question was, will you?
Oh, there is no intent at this point in time.
And use up some of that money that might be diverted to...
Point of order.
Point of order.
We let Mr. Gray answer.
Yes, I agree. Let Mr. Gray answer, please.
There's no intent today, but we asked the question, and that's the answer we have.
Thank you. Mr. Benzo, do you have a question?
Thank you. Jeff, I too have been pretty greatly discouraged by the process in this right from the very first meeting. But that being said, while I'm not a big fan of the Vector situation, I appreciate your comments regarding the public engagement and asking those questions. I think it's important that we do get input from the public on that. I understand what you're saying about asking, do you want this in the project? Do you want that in the project? What I never heard, though, is did we ask anybody, do you even want this project? And is that an intent? Because I didn't hear that come up at all in there. And, to me, that seems like that would be the first question is, do people of Champaign County, do you even want this? And if you do, okay, then do we want these phases in it? Do we want a bike path? Do we want roundabouts? Do we want any of those things? But right now, I mean, speaking for me personally, and in my constituents, I haven't had any change out there, and I don't have anywhere near overwhelming support for this. Matter of fact, it's overwhelmingly against this project. So, I guess I would like to know, how is Champaign County as a whole, do the people really want this project? Because it's difficult for me to support something that they don't really want. Is that in the plans to ask that question?
We've obviously talked about that, and there has been folks that have suggested we use websites and so forth. I know WDWS did a poll some time ago, way before we even started this process. So I guess that's something that we need to discuss. That's why, I mean, I'm not going to stand here and tell you that I'm going to see every angle of this project, but if we don't talk about it with you and we don't talk about it with the public, then we're never going to get to a place where we know whether or not we should build this, and if we do, what it should look like. So these are good conversations to have.
Mr. Gladden.
Yes, thank you. And I'm not intending to put you on the spot here, Danny. Yeah. I'm sort of making a comment, maybe with a question at the end, but it does seem like I hear a lot about options, and I hear a lot about discussions and conversations. But I guess my question is, I wonder how many options there actually are out there, and what those options are, and to kind of to go continue on with what my colleague was just saying. I haven't really heard one of the options being not doing it at all. I'm not saying, I would advocate for or against that, but a lot of this, especially with the hiring of the consultants, has come across to me as, oh, we're going to do this. Yeah. Now, the question is, how do you guys want us to do it? Which I don't know. And the answer you just provided to the question, and maybe you're not the person to answer that question, I don't know. But I sort of got the impression not a lot of thought had been given to that option. And here's the thing, I was not able to attend those meetings so far regarding Olympian, but I keep hearing the term stakeholders used. And I sincerely hope that the public is being treated as the prime majority of stakeholders, because, we are representatives of the public, but we are far outnumbered by the general populace, who to me are the real stakeholders in this community project. And I guess I also have another question, and I will admit that much about this project makes my head spin, but perhaps I haven't grasped the answer and it's right in front of me. But we have a county employee, namely yourself, out here, kind of walking the pavement and doing this, and the county board hasn't actually even voted about this. So when I hear terminology about like cart before the horse, that's one of the things that comes to my mind is why is this coming before that, and et cetera, et cetera. So I don't know if you can answer that for me, please.
Let me tell you that I am one person, and if you followed me the last 2 weeks, I haven't had much time to spend on Olympian Drive. And I'm not saying it's not because it's important. I'm just saying there's so many things that go on in the highway department, in particular in the summertime. And Mr. Gray is one person as a public works director. Mr. Schmidt is one person as a public works director. There's no way a public person as us that has multifaceted job can do all the things that we hired a consultant to do. So to get to this point where we're going to have this conversation, and I couldn't have put together all the PowerPoint presentations. I couldn't have done the design study phase in the beginning. You got to have people that this is what they do 24/7. And literally, guys at Hanson and some of the ladies at Vector, this is what they've done. We don't have the personnel to try to get this information out, to hold the public meetings, to make sure that we're engaging the public. It's just, there's absolutely no way we can do it. So in order to be able to do those types of things, we need to hire people to do those. So had we not hired them, we wouldn't have been here having this conversation. We wouldn't have been able to have the stakeholder meetings. We wouldn't have been able to have the roundtable meetings, because there's just no way that we could pull that off without having people to help us do it. And that's one of the big reasons why you get somebody in right from the beginning. If you bring them in partway through, then they weren't involved in everything that happened before you brought them in. So the more information they can have, the better informed they are, the better they can help us work our way through the process.
Mr. Weibel, can I ask a follow-up question real quick?
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Well, speaking of the consultants, did I understand correct that these consultants are ones that have worked on the project in the past?
Yes.
I guess the thing that came to mind when I heard that was, I don't know, to me, perhaps if you're going to bring in consultants at this juncture, maybe different consultants might have been an interesting idea, just for the simple fact you could bring a fresh pair of eyes to the situation. I mean, I can see the pros to bringing in people who are already familiar with it, but I can also see the pros to bringing in people who aren't, simply because they do bring a fresh set of eyes to the situation.
And literally, one of the gentlemen who's a principal with Hanson Engineers was here before any of us were here. So to have that historical knowledge, to know what happened and how they got to where they were when they did the original design study, you can't replace that, no matter how hard you try. If you bring somebody in new, it's like when I was my first couple years of county engineering, I know I made mistakes, especially looking back, that I wouldn't make now. So that historical knowledge, I believe, is a lot more useful than, I mean, we do have other consultants that are working as sub-consultants of Hanson who have never worked on the project before, but Hanson, as being the prime consultant, we felt we needed that historical knowledge in order to get this thing going.
Let's go to Mr. Mosier.
You know, the thing that sticks in my craw is I was here in 1997, and I was chairman of this board in 1998. And we had a fringe road agreement, and we gave money from our county highway department to the city of Urbana to update Lincoln Avenue. And at that time, there was grant money available to get that bridge over the railroad track. And I thought we were on our way, and I don't know if Bill Gray was around. I'm getting so old, my memory is not as good as it used to be, but I communicated this to you and Mr. Moore in January.
Right.
That what made this thing go from 1997 to such a burning issue in 2010, and it sat there for 13 years without anybody, all of a sudden, this is something we got to have. We participated in Olympian Drive on the other side of the track with Champaign to get it to Market Street. We participated with Urbana to upgrade Cunningham Avenue up to Farm and Fleet. And then all of a sudden one day we got a phone call, or somebody sent a letter in here saying Urbana couldn't come up with the money and the whole thing was on hold. And I'm not going to forget that. This could have been done if it was such a dire project in 1998. And it died, and we all went to work on Curtis Road. Now, whatever happened to that money for that railroad bridge, I don't know. If it's still in a bank account somewhere in Springfield to put an overhead down on First Street, or whether it's to come back up here and put another bridge over the tracks on Olympian Drive. But at that point, I think we had agreed that Lincoln Avenue was the thing that the county had enough money we could support, and Champaign could support, and Urbana could support. And it all blew up when Urbana said, no, we can't do it. And I, to this day, have not found one reason to find Urbana's engineering department good on anything to hold their word, whether it was 13 years ago or now. And I really have a strong feeling about taking that thing past Lincoln Avenue at all, because that whole tract of ground over there from 45 clear back to the west has been zoned industrial for 38 years, and I haven't seen anything happen up there on the east side of the tracks during that time, and it still hasn't happened, and I don't know what's going to make it happen with this economy. And that's all I got to say about it, and I'm going to have a real hard time supporting anything that goes east of Lincoln Avenue.
Mr. McGinty?
Thanks. First of all, a couple of disclaimers, because I've been asked to provide them. Not only am I a member of this board, but I chair the Economic Development Corp Board for the county. I don't represent their views as a group, just like I can't control the board here, and I do not want to. Also, I don't represent the landowners up there. I've met with them. Those that have generally been known for being opposed to the whole project, I met with them, but I don't represent their views at all. Mayor of Urbana asked me to make sure that people know I don't represent the Urbana's views either. I'm happy to do that, just mine. But the views are based on a whole lot of meetings I've been to. I know that Jeff and Libby and Bill have got to be tired of seeing me at this point. Been to all of these with the city, with the county, the landowners, members of the EDC, members of the chamber, the councils, our board. Attended all the public engagement meetings and the round tables. So hopefully the thoughts are based on some good observations, some research, some effort that's been going into it. The issues are pretty clear. First of all, what has to happen with Olympian? Anything? That's sort of the number one question a lot of people are asking. Then, if yes, should it go out to 45 all the way? If no, how about Lincoln? If Lincoln, how to connect it? The sweeping S design is controversial. It cuts across Squire Farms, and that's among others. So that will continue to be an issue to address. But the feeling I get is that the majority of people think that loop from the existing stoppage point on Olympian to the west over to Lincoln and down to create that connection makes some sense if it can be done right. Is the money there? How to spend that money is something, it's for others to figure out, but it's a heck of a challenge. I tend to think that it's worth going to find out what those risks are and if it's possible to redirect some of that money. Should we spend it? The state's broke. Should we even be spending it at this point? Are we destroying prime farmland in that area, or are we bringing unprecedented economic development to the area? This is what's creating some of the conflict. What's unfortunate here is that there's been pretty poor communication to date. I think that's obvious. The public engagement, I attended all of them. Most of the comments were that it really seemed disorganized, that it was more of a presentation. I heard the term sales job, and those are concerning. The result of all this is some finger pointing, some distrust, and I always hear about sides. What side are you on? Are you for or against? And I just don't like that. I don't think this is about sides. I think mine is a conditional side. I would be for the economic development if it's done right. I think that biting it off in a digestible track to Lincoln is possible if that's done right. And I've had great explanation from the public works directors and from Jeff and the engineer about why the sweeping S, how that has to happen. I would like to think that we could continue to try to share the information as to why it has to be one way or another, seriously consider options, not reopen an entire plan that was done back in '97. That would be extremely expensive, but open parts of it that are pertinent to what's changed in those years. Just cherry pick those parts, focus on those, and provide some research and some answers. With the sides, for or against, do we really want that? I do not. I do not want that. I'm involved in this and have stuck my nose in this because I want to open up this can of worms and keep it open until the options and the directions are well defined and more broadly accepted. That's the reason why I'm involved. I want to see the great majority of this entire county behind this. I think if we try to pass something and it passes with barely over half the people, it's going to continue to foster the communication challenges that we have. Jeff, thank you. I appreciate the job you did with the overview, and Bill, I appreciate your time as well. For me, the key points are demand, and if so, connecting Lincoln to Olympian Drive. I think that we're starting to narrow this down. I criticize maybe the perfection of public engagement, but what has happened here is that people are considering other options now, and these are good things. I think that these are very good things. I do feel like the county board, this is the first chance outside of the round tables, where only 8 county board members were there, for the county board to be heard on these issues. And I think that it's very important that we're heard so the cities know. I threw around the idea with some others about doing straw polling tonight and all of that. Let's not do that. I think people are hearing us. I encourage others to express their views. Mine are, I'm for the economic development if it can be done right. I'm very much for open communication on this, respect for all of the parties involved, including the landowners. That dialogue needs to be cooperative. This is not about sides. This is about finding a solution that's best for the county together. Thank you for the time.
Mr. Jay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One critical element that has been missing in this whole process, from my perspective, is the need. Do we need this ground for development? How much ground do we have currently zoned and prepared to build on today if we needed it? I don't know that figure. I hope you do know that figure. Is there a need for us to do this?
You're asking me if there's a need for us to do this?
Well, you're the one at the mic.
And as I always say, I know people that know answers. Yeah. I do have the city of Urbana as development people here. Libby, do you have any comment to that? I don't know where your zoning goes and what everything is zoned out there. And
Yeah. I would just take a step back. I'm a planner, and take a look at your long-range transportation plan. That's a CUATS plan. The city's comprehensive plan, which shows the connection, along with some others in the community, and then the mile and a half. So it's about connectivity, and then you can look at the land uses. There has been quite a bit of economic development along Lincoln, with the part of Lincoln that's been improved, and along the railroad. The railroads sold some of their frontage to industry. So we've done a pretty extensive economic analysis to show that job growth. We believe that can continue, particularly with the connection over to Apollo and across the railroad. So it's connectivity, the job growth, emergency access was mentioned, and just going hand in hand with our land use plans.
Mr. O'Connor, I'm afraid you have to keep your voice down. Sorry.
And these are plans that have been in the works for many years. Road projects do take a long time. When you look at North Urbana, we have very poor connectivity east-west and north-south, and that has to do with the saline ditch, with the airport. The airport's a huge factor up there. It's very hard to get one way or the other, and this will relieve traffic from the interstate. There's a lot of information on the website. The whole location study talks about some of the need. We have an economic study. We have our comprehensive plan. We have the LRTP. We're working on trying to consolidate the information so you can get a better snapshot, and hopefully we can update some of the information through this engagement process. So those are just some of the broad factors that dictate the need.
Quick follow-up, if I might. You really didn't answer my question, and I'm sorry. I probably didn't phrase it properly. But I'm still not sure that we need that for economic development. And I'm not here to particularly argue that. I would like for somebody to show me that we're deficit in this kind of development ground in Champaign County, not just up here. You all have had since 1972 to do something and haven't done it. Now all of a sudden we got to do it quick, and we've done it all over in other areas of the county. I'm not sure we need to do it here at this time.
I've worked quite a bit on North Lincoln Avenue, and we've got 900 jobs that have been added in this corridor in the last 10 years that I've been with the city. We've looked at a redevelopment area in that stretch. There are a lot of new industries. I think a lot of people don't necessarily drive up on Lincoln north of the interstate unless you work up there. So there has been a lot of job growth. There's been acquisitions, new industries coming in. And I think an important thing with the economics is that people look at these maps that we've prepared. So we've got really decades of showing Olympian connecting and Lincoln connecting both. And they make their decisions about property acquisition. And for example, the Apollo Industrial Park was all based on these connections, and people believed that the government, hopefully when funding became available, would construct those improvements. So there's really, millions at stake of private funding and job growth and job expectations. And these are stakeholders that have been involved, but they don't often come to all of the meetings. The industry leaders, Economic Development Corporation. So there really is potential there. We did do what I think is a very detailed economic analysis, and that's on the city's website. I think we may want to put that on the Olympian Drive website. We did 3 different scenarios. We did a slow growth, a medium growth, and a higher growth. We did very conservative projections, and I think there's some good information there that might help you.
Mr. Langenheim?
I'd like to take up where Mr. Mosier left off. I've been around here, too, since 1998, and I've been continuously on the Highway Committee, and I've made it my business to attend CUATS meetings throughout all of that. And I want to assure my colleagues that this thing is not something that's left over from 1998, nor is it something that has appeared de novo at this particular time. There has been a continuous attention on the part of the cities, the county, the state, with regard to the development of the so-called fringe roads. We had one big crisis where we found out if we put the county's promised amount of money into the fringe roads, we wouldn't be able to take care of the roads out in the agricultural area. We've had a number of different modifications of this. So this is not something that's being sprung out without any thought at all. Urbana withdrew from the, according to Todd Satterthwaite, whom I pushed up against the wall and slapped his face figuratively over the withdrawal of Urbana from the Olympian Drive Lincoln Avenue project at that time in 1998. And he told me, he said, well, we only have so much money and we want to put it into Windsor Road. So this is not something new, and it's not something really outrageous. And also another thing about it that hasn't been mentioned, Mervis, the junkyard that's down near the station in Champaign, is moving to the southwest corner of the projected Olympian Drive and Cunningham. So there's a continual movement of industrial functions into that general area.
There is, if I could just to follow up with Mr. Jay's question, on the website there is something that I'm not smart enough to put together, but our consultants did a great job. It's a flyover, and it shows from the air the development that has happened around Champaign and Urbana over the last 15 years. And it kind of goes through a chronological, Myers developed, the mall developed, and all of those things, and it kind of takes you through chronologically. And you can actually see it. It's from Google Earth, and you can see those things pop up and those developments happen and those different types of economic things happen in and around that Olympian Drive corridor. So if you're trying to scratch your head and remember where things were and where they are now, that's a really unique tool that you can just click on the website, and it'll take you through that.
Mr. Nudo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One quick question for Jeff. What was the total cost of Windsor and Curtis? Ballpark.
Give or take 10.
Yeah, give or take 10 million.
Yeah, neither one of them's finished. What's the extension of Lincoln right now, Bill? That last piece? Windsor, I mean. 8 million from Philo to High Cross.
Do you have a ballpark cost of the total project?
What do you mean by total? From where to where?
Equivalent to where we're talking about from...
Well, I think Curtis Road would be probably... Dave, what's Curtis from Staley to Neal? You have a number?
16?
16.
Curtis would be about equivalent?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll reference that in a second. I've looked at this in two different ways. One, development jobs, and the second, a ring road. I mean, those are the two obvious reasons why we're doing this. When I look at the development jobs, a real simple thing to do is just go to the plat maps and follow the money. See who bought properties where. And you'd be very surprised that developers have purchased properties in Champaign and to Lincoln. I think it's a fair statement. You take a look at it and see if I'm wrong. So those are prime areas for more jobs. They're prime areas for development and reasons to put this road in. If I had to categorize priorities, I'd say the intersection of I-57 and Olympian is the #1 area for job growth, and where that's where the rubber meets the road. Now, you take a look what Coldwell Banker did. They've got some offices there that are semi-filled. You go out further west, it's a road to nowhere. Christie and Carl haven't followed through on their projects. You go further to the east, and there, I believe, is the second best area is the connection to Lincoln, and Lincoln has jobs, and I think there's possible expansions for existing companies, etc. So. And I would even say that Duncan connection is a better job creator because Duncan has the potential, when it's connected, to get more growth in businesses. I just can tell you that. I feel it, and I think a lot of developers would tell you the same. Having said that, you take a look at going east after Lincoln, and there's no farmland purchased by developers. There's nothing there. I mean, I'm going to be long gone before there's going to be development there. And what I see is to do this in a phased project like Mr. McGinney is talking about, where
we as a group of governments would look at getting Lincoln done, possibly Duncan done, and then on an annual basis discuss traffic counts and job growth to decide whether there should be a connection to 45. I think that's the logical way to do it. Now let's talk about ring roads. Jeff was kind enough to give me a person at IDOT to give me some traffic counts, and I found out later you can go to Getting Around Illinois and you can get your own. But when I asked for the traffic count from Market to 45 on Leverett and the same on Fort Harris, and then for the benefit of the doubt, give me the count going, getting off on from 74 to the Cunningham exit going north. Well, they couldn't do that because they take the count before it splits. But, you know, I just arbitrarily came up with a number. I figured 2/3 going south, 1/3 going north. If that's not fair, go half and half. But I came up with somewhere in the vicinity of 7,000, slightly under 7,000 cars on those three. 7,000. Now, I asked for Windsor. Windsor has 15,000 cars. Curtis has 11.5 going on 12. 27,000 cars versus give it 10,000. I asked for the cost of earlier what the cost is, cost effectiveness. This is sitting at $30 million right now, and that's before the wish list, because the wish list I think was a real joke because nobody gave prices. You know, do you want this? Do you want a sidewalk? Do you want a bike path? How much is it going to cost extra? We don't know. So, you know, maybe the cost is 35, maybe it's 40, as I've heard from another planner. Is there a justification, whether it's a ring road or job development, whether we should connect Lincoln, Lincoln to 45 right now? And I question that. I think we should go ahead with Lincoln. I think we should go ahead and talk about Duncan, and I think we should also, on a yearly basis, meet with all three governmental bodies and talk about the update of traffic counts, job growth, to see should we go to 45. For me is a non-starter, and I will lobby a lot of people on this. It's a non-starter if we spend some of that money on purchasing land to go to 45. This is a non-starter because it violates the trust between the parties. This party has to agree to go to 45. And just because there is a reasonable person who wants to sell their land now, that's a waste of taxpayer money. If it never happens, that is a waste of taxpayer money. I want to spend every dollar into Lincoln, possibly Duncan, and do what's right for the public to get this done now. I'm really encouraged with what the IDOT gentleman said here, that it is negotiable, that we can make this thing work on a phased basis. So I just want to encourage everybody to think about, you know, the fact that unless, for example, Urbana says to us, you know, well, we're going to spend the money on buying land, that's not good faith. That's not good faith. And I'm saying it now out loud, and I've said it before with Brennan, with the mayor. And it's a non-starter for me. I will not accept the fact that they buy land in advance of our agreement.
Ms. Anderson.
A lot's going through my brain, but I do appreciate the update tonight. I did attend one of the roundtables, and I appreciate your reaching out and giving people an opportunity. I have been bothered before that, and I hear people talking about demonizing and so forth, but I often see in the newspaper, you know, that the county board has a consensus on this, or we've all been consulted, and I'm thinking other county board members have not consulted me, so, but when I read it, it looks like it's so unanimous, and then somebody talks to me, and a constituent, and wonders, you know, what happened at county board, and I say, well, I read that in the paper, but we did not have that discussion here. So those discussions apparently are going on other places. So I think it's good that we have it in this room where we all are here and are hearing information, and you're giving us the website where we can look up for even further information. It seems like a lot of the opposition has been because of the farmland, and I've always been for preserving farmland. But when you talk about development, as Mr. Nudo has just said, maybe out on Duncan, some of these other areas would take good farmland as well. And maybe you could speak to, when you say businesses, I'm not quite sure exactly, what we're talking about. This is more of an industrial area in there. I live in Champaign, so I can't say what, I went for Urbana, but I don't think most residential people in the city of Urbana are wanting industry out. I've seen letters to the editor that say, why don't we take the big box buildings that are sitting empty. I don't think we would want that kind of industry out in those residential areas. We want them where there's already industry, access to railroads, and that sort of thing. So I just hear a lot of things, kind of being thrown out, and I think we need to really educate the public, and I appreciate your being here.
Thank you.
Do that.
Mr. James.
Jay and Mark, I think Jay was trying to get there, but as usual, I have to speak for him. There are so many buildings and so many places set and empty, and as I said in some of the meetings I was at, nothing's in stone, things have changed, 13 years has gone by. Most of the simple folks I speak to, when I talk about issues like this, they look at me and they say, well, what about the roads we have now? Can't they fix these potholes? And we're going to build more. Growth is good. I've never, ever argued about growth. It's going to come all the time. But I think in today's world, in today's economy, and the way the state is, the money's here today, it's gone tomorrow, and we're all left holding the bag and raising gas tax to get some more money. I think that we really need to look at this. I think that the discussions are great. I sort of think that Lincoln Avenue, if that's the way to go, then that's fine. But even the money. And the folks out there, again, I can only say simply, because when I drink coffee with them, they're all saying, Stan, did you see that big old hole back there? And I say, call Mr. Blue.
Not unless it's on a county road, don't, because I don't see too many holes out there.
Ms. Ammons.
Mr. Chair, I really want to thank you for getting us an update. I would like to ask, in lieu of time, if this is something that could go and continue discussion at a committee meeting of the whole, that we can continue to work on this issue as they will continue to work on it, and get us onto the agenda. Of course, that is at the discretion of the chair.
Certainly, we could bring Mr. Blue back and he could continue discussions.
Absolutely, yeah. The committee of the whole is right after the legislative hearing.
Mr. Ms. Michaels?
Well, just something quick here, and I might be reiterating, but I was at one of those stakeholder meetings, and it was crazy. I felt like it was forced down that this is what we're doing now, how do you want it done? But honestly, with the consultants and the consultant fees, I know that tends to get rather expensive. As a point, I would rather see us concentrate on one part that we are fairly in agreement on, and let's leave the rest of this behind, and let's use that consulting money for what is right and not for the whole thing.
Mr. Kurtz.
Just two quick points. I want to confirm Mr. Nitto's statement. Tuesday, I was in a meeting with a representative of the Atkins Group, and Olympia Drive came up. I asked him point blank, did Atkins Group or anyone he knows, developers, going to purchase or develop anything in the Urbana corridor where Olympia Drive is now projected to be built? They said no, an unequivocal no. And I said, where are you going to be all your development? They said, in Champaign on the west side. So I can confirm that from the Atkins Group on Tuesday, the representative of the Atkins Group. Second, Mr. Gladney has a good point. We haven't really weighed in yet, officially or unofficially, on this, and obviously there's a consensus here. And I feel maybe we do need a straw poll on...
Point of order, no straw poll.
No straw poll.
Point of order, no straw poll.
Can we?
No. No action item on the agenda, no straw poll. Point of order.
Are you asking for a ruling on that, Mr. Kurtz? It's complex.
Let me help you.
I really think actually you should take this to the committee of the whole and do it there. But I can talk about this. Mr. Beckett, you can...
It would violate the Open Meetings Act to take a straw poll that has not been identified on the agenda?
I tend to agree with you because the agenda item says update from Mr. Blue, and it doesn't say much more than that, so it is very vague. I also point out that our rules do not allow for a straw vote at county board meetings. They are specified that they can be allowed for at committee of the whole meetings or committee meetings. We only have that in our rules. Robert's rules does not recognize straw votes at all. In fact, I can tell you how they describe them here. A motion to take an informal straw poll to test the water is not in order because it neither adopts nor rejects a measure and hence is meaningless and dilatory. And there's some other stuff after that, but that sort of gives you the sense of it.
This board dilatory?
Dilatory.
May I finish?
What?
That's my second point of order. Mr. Kurtz has already spoke. I've had my hand.
Go ahead, Mr. Beckett.
May I say something?
Sure, no, go, please.
Mr. Blue, I have a question.
Yes.
Libby referred to this. If I was a developer on the west side of the tracks, and I knew that this county board in 1994 adopted the Fringe Road Agreement, and I knew that this county board voted in 1997 to approve Olympian Drive across the tracks, and this board acted on that agreement in 2003, and this board acted on that agreement in 2008, I would think that if the bridge doesn't go across the railroad tracks, there had been a bait and switch. Because I built my plant, I built my FedEx, I built my News Gazette, I built my whatever on Apollo Drive because all of these governments told me there was going to be this road and a bridge that was going to go across the railroad tracks. Did anybody come to any of these meetings and say anything like that?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Mr. Kurtz.
Can we put on our agenda for the next committee of the whole a straw vote concerning Olympia Drive?
I think that's appropriate.
Okay,
Mr.
and I saw.
Betts.
I know that people want a straw vote, and what I want is more information. They're preparing a report that I don't know when it's going to come out, but I would like to read that whole report. I would like to see what that report recommends, what Jeff recommends. I don't at all feel like I am prepared this month or next month for a straw vote. I would like definitive answers. For instance, if that money actually would be available for the Lincoln option, if it's only available to go all the way up to Cunningham, I would like more definitive answers before I raise my hand, yes, no, in a straw vote in any way, shape, or form. I would like to see all of the information in a usable form before I'm prepared to straw vote or vote in a serious way on this matter. When do you know approximately when
Well, the combined roundtable meeting is August 25th.
And you're expecting to have a draft report by?
The day before? No, I mean, these things take time. We're bringing that information back to that combined roundtable.
I understand.
If it's that what you're looking for is the information that we have gathered from these public engagement process, all that information it will be available August 25th, which is only next week. So,
but do you anticipate as part of this process that this report is going to make some form of recommendation to the various governmental bodies?
I think the report will tell you what the community's flavor is and what they would recommend based on the information that we gathered at those roundtable meetings. Now, when people turned in those forms, I mean, I don't know what the number is of people populated Champaign County. We got 62 forms here. Now, that's not a very representative sample of the people that you represent. So I don't know how much weight that's going to carry with you folks. It's kind of tough to make a decision based on a small sample in such a large population.
I guess the follow-up I would have is, since folks in this body tonight have raised a number of issues concerning the amount or degree of economic development projections of that nature. I would like to see that information addressed as well. One of the things that one of the speakers at the podium asked is a needs analysis. Has there been a needs analysis, whatever that exactly means? And if there hasn't, is there some reason why it hasn't been done? If it has, will it be attached?
I don't know if there's been a full-blown needs. I don't know what goes into a needs analysis because I'm not a planner.
I don't either.
But I will certainly, I mean, the economic analysis that Libby's talking about, we can link that from the Olympian Drive website to the Urbana website. They have done an analysis
I'm
of the
getting
economic.
the feeling that the question was a little bit different than that, though. That by needs analysis, there's some sort of formal process or what have you that you let out a expert to perform. I don't know. It was a serious question that was asked.
Right, right.
And I would like to follow it.
Can you put some clarity to that, or?
It's kind of an unusual request for these projects. We take our road projects from plans. They're tied, it's a circulation plan, it's tied to land use, and so that's where the need is derived by those future land uses. There's traffic impact analyses, and those might do like a needs projection. And that's a smaller scale study normally. So what we have here is a good background of those regional plans, the LRTP and the city's plans. We have a very extensive and detailed location study that might have some good demand information in it. We'd have to take a look at that. And then we have a more recent economic analysis. I think, between the steering committee, people on the steering committee, we could take a look at trying to compile a lot of that information and do a better job of addressing the needs analysis. I know we're on track with this public engagement. That's not really one of the goals of the public engagement, but certainly the steering committee could take a closer look at the needs and try to compile some of this information that's out there and has been developed. And I do know there have been some real estate decisions made based on this project. That I know Mr. Beckett had asked that question, and that has come up a number of times, not necessarily at the round table, but many other meetings. I was throwing that in there.
Can I have a follow-up? Thank you very much. I think it was really useful if we could have that in a form that lay people like myself could understand that.
Excuse me, Mr. Betts. Ms. Tyler, would you be willing to come to a future committee of the whole meeting?
Sure.
Perhaps next month? I think September 7th.
And my follow-up is a comment that Mr. Mosier made. I was in the room that night as well with Steve Mosier when Olympia Drive fell apart the last time, and it was very, very difficult, and we never did entirely get the answer. What it boiled down to in the end, I was told, is a school funding who got the property tax revenues. That was at least the official line, and I'm sure it had impact on it. Has that issue been resolved? Should, in case we build this thing sometime in my lifetime, has that issue of which school district gets the property tax been resolved?
I think Bill's jumping up here to answer that one.
From the city of Urbana's perspective, the answer is yes. We know that the dividing line basically is Lincoln Avenue. West of Lincoln is in the Champaign School District. From there, east is in the Urbana School District. And whatever development occurs that benefits whatever side of Lincoln Avenue up there will, obviously, property taxes generated will help those respective school districts. But our city council has made decisions and want to proceed with a next phase, which is what we're talking about tonight. The school district matter of where the property tax goes to the Champaign or the Urbana School District is not stopping the city of Urbana in proceeding with a next phase.
I want to make sure on this, because that was the alleged blocking point the last time.
There's actually three issues. If we want to talk about 1997, I'd be happy to. Mr. Mosier, we were in the room together during the negotiations. There were three main issues, but the one that the coup de grace, if you will, of Mayor Satterthwaite was the school district matter. That was something that he had a real hard time with in spending Urbana dollars. Again, this is back in 1997. Different mindset today, but in 97, in investing the city of Urbana dollars outside our corporate limits for the project that would benefit the Champaign School District was a problem that he had, no question about it. But there are other matters, too, that got in the way that we didn't have a complete agreement. But, you know, that's a bygone from my perspective. And I guess what I look at is that we have a 97 location study that we all participated in, came up with an alignment, okay? And then we had to wait for the funding, the federal funding, to make the first phase. If you recall, the location study always talked about phases. It was never going to be one main project. The first phase was the project in Champaign, which the county and the city of Champaign participated in and completed it in 2003. Okay, we always knew there'd be a next phase, and quite frankly, in the study, you know, the Apollo, or it said Market Street, but the Market or Apollo to Lincoln was going to be another phase. In 97, we did talk about Lincoln Avenue as an improvement, and we agree. In fact, we immediately, with county support, proceeded with a location study because we had problems with the existing alignment. If anybody's ever driven up there, it can't work, not for development. So we did do, partnering with the county and the city of Champaign, the location study, went through 10 or so alignments, came up with the preferred alignment, and then we did the next phase, the first phase of Lincoln Avenue, which the county and the city participated together with, and we put a bridge over the Saline, an expensive bridge, over $1 million, worked with the developer. That was the first phase. It stops now. We have another mile to go to get to Olympian Drive. We're also, as you probably know, we're working on another bridge over the Saline, and that's with the county taking the lead, townships participating, and the city of Urbana is. That's in the county, those few blocks. But when the project is done, jurisdictionally, it's going to be transferred to the city of Urbana. So we have worked together on Lincoln Avenue for the location study, for the first phase of Lincoln Avenue going up to where it currently ends, north of Saline Court, and then the current project, which is over the lower Saline Bridge. Okay, so those are three examples. So I don't know if that helps, but the City Council is, I think you all know, is very much supportive of moving forward with Olympian Drive. They, too, have a strong interest in Lincoln Avenue, too. And quite frankly, if I could roll back a year ago to start over again, I think, there were mistakes. Jeff admitted a mistake or two tonight. I've been with the city since '92, and I'm still making them, okay? But the point is that we want to get a consensus on what should be the next phase. And if it's Project A or Project A and X, that's what we want to try to get out of this discussion. And I don't care if it's a roundtable or this meeting or at the local bar, whatever it is, it doesn't matter, but we want to try to get a consensus here. And as we work together with the steering committee reps, Jeff, Dennis, and Dave from Champaign, and myself and others, IDOT folks, that's what we're trying to work on. So we're taking your comments tonight very seriously because this will help us formulate something. And we will provide the input to the consultant. The consultant's not going to tell us, oh, do Project Z or whatever. No, they're going to do what we tell them to do. So, but this information in a month, next month, if there's a committee of the whole, yeah, we want to continue to have those dialogues.
Ms. Wysocki.
Well, Jeff, I thought I heard you say early on, almost 2 hours ago now, that really this is sort of just the starting point as far as the community dialogue goes. The roundtables have happened. There's a report coming out. You're informing us. You were talking about taking your show on the road to Rotaries and Kiwanis and KSCs and whoever else will listen to you, which makes me really think that us talking about taking straw votes or real votes, however way you categorize them, to me seems premature until you've had that, you've opened up those channels of dialogue with the rest of the bigger community. And I would think that the appropriate thing might be for you to have those talks, come back to us again and say, this is what I'm hearing out there. This is what's being talked about wherever.
Right.
And then, it might be the more appropriate time for this board to make a decision about whether acting on this is the right thing to do. Because I would hate to have this board act and then the community get the sense that, well, the discussion's over, all three entities are on board, and, it's just going to fly the way it's going to fly. So I think, I don't think we should short-circuit your efforts to talk about this in other civic settings.
Mr. Blue, when do you think that report would be ready? Okay, final copy. You said after the last roundtable meeting?
Once we're bringing that information to the roundtable meeting on August 25th, so that's next week.
What time is that meeting?
7 o'clock at the Civic Center, correct? Urbana Civic Center, 7 o'clock.
Well, I think we can wait until after that meeting to decide what we'll have on the next agenda for highway. Why don't we just do that?
Okay. I just wanted to make one comment. Mr. Betts had commented on the need of the project, and when I was talking with IDOT officials, the original location design study, the first thing that they do is come up with a purpose and need of the project. And maybe that's changed since that original location design study has been put out. But one of the things that was considered was the no-build alternative. Does the no-build alternative fit the purpose and need of what this community was looking for at that time? And there was engagement during that process as well. It wasn't done in a locked box or a locked room by engineers. So that was investigated originally before we even got close to this point, was the purpose and need. And that document is on the website, the original design study, location design study is on the website. So you can read that. If that doesn't satisfy what we're looking for, we can take another look at that.
Mr. Mosier, you have a comment?
I don't get involved in Urbana politics very much, but the rhetoric that has come out of the city administration and to this point, the feeling out where I live in the district that O'Connor and Knott and I represent has all been negative because they have not had this information before, and it certainly hasn't helped the public view outside of the Chamber of Commerce and the RPC. They think they're playing games that we don't want to get involved in, and we don't want to put our road money into something that we're not really going to benefit from because we got 200 miles of highways out there the county's supposed to take care of. And with this fringe road thing that happened way back when Kmart was in Champaign has left a bitter taste outside the city limits in a lot of people's minds about why we pumped money into Olympian Drive in Champaign and why we did things on Cunningham Avenue and why we did things on Lincoln Avenue. And Ralph's right. When Satterthwaite decided he was going to abandon this thing and he wanted Windsor Road moved up, this board went along with that and we moved it up. It wasn't supposed to come up in 2009. It was on later. If I'm wrong, Ralph, correct me. But
no, the only correction I'd like to make is that Satterthwaite was speaking for the city council. He wasn't here at all. Satterthwaite gave the statement, but the city of Urbana asked Luton to remove it.
Yeah.
know that, but nonetheless, it happened.
Okay. Any further questions for Mr. Blue?
I guess the one thing that I would end with is, I know there was a lot of conversation about Curtis Road when I first got here, and whether or not that was needed, and whether or not that project was ever going to happen. And the majority of the people that I see in the coffee shops and at the baseball games and at the basketball games think that Curtis Road is a heck of a project, and it's been done right. It's a great link from 57 over to Neal Street up to the University of Illinois. So I think if you kind of think back in your minds through history when that project was kind of going through these phases as well, you'll remember a lot of these same conversations. And I really think I'm proud to be a part of Curtis Road. I think that's a great project for this community. I think working with the City of Champaign and their public works people, I couldn't be prouder of Curtis Road. I think that Windsor Road out by Stone Creek is going to be a real gem as well in working with the public works officials at Urbana. And I think a lot of these similar conversations were probably, had at this, these same meetings back before those projects came to fruition. So, but just wanted to leave you with that.
Mr. Blue, thank you for your time. I appreciate you coming here tonight. Okay, we're going to take a 3-minute break.
You made the right choice.
We're setting the next one. We're setting the next Thomas is that Oh, yeah.
I guess we don't need
Yes,
Well, we return to our seats. Let's continue with the meeting. I'm sure all of our attendees wish to stay here for the rest of the stuff. It's really exciting and good stuff.
Call the sheriff, don't bring that
We have a quorum, so let's rock and roll. Finance, Mr. McGinty.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I recommend adoption of resolution number 7431, purchase and not following purchasing policy, and I so move.
Second by Mr. Beckett. Discussion? See none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
I recommend adoption of resolution number 7432, payment of claims authorization, and I so move.
Second by Mr. Beckett. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
I recommend adoption of resolution number 7433, a budget amendment for $950,000 insurance receipt of additional funding from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services for the expansion of energy assistance to low-income individuals and families and extension of the grant through 12/31/10, and I so move.
Second by Mr. Betts. Discussion? Roll call, please.
Sapp.
Yes.
Schrader.
Yes.
Smucker.
Yes.
Wysocki.
Yes.
Ammons. Anderson.
Yes.
Beckett.
Yes.
Benzel.
Yes.
Betts.
Yes.
Dennett. Gladney.
Yes.
James.
Yes.
Jay.
Yes.
Jones. Knott.
Yes.
Kurtz.
Yes.
Langenheim. McGinty.
Yes.
Michaels.
Yes.
Mosier. Nudo.
Yes.
O'Connor.
Yes.
Richards.
Yes.
Rosales.
Yes.
Weibel.
Yes, motion carries.
And from the addendum, I recommend adoption of resolution.
You didn't call my name.
Oh, Ms. Wysocki?
I voted Wysocki. I said I have you
Didn't it?
marked as yes.
Let's clarify. Ms. Wysocki, what is your vote?
Yes.
Marked as yes.
Her vote is yes, okay. The motion still carries.
From the addendum, I recommend adoption of resolution number 7477, a budget amendment for $166,631 to offset the difference between the original fiscal year 2010 budget of $392,000 for courts construction and the actual cost to complete the project in FY10 of $558,631. And I so move.
Second by Mr. Rosales. Ms. Busey, you want to quickly explain this?
Well, the explanation is on the amendment. Basically, when we adopted the 2010 budget, we thought we would get more work done in 2009 than we did. So the budget was for $392,000, and actually, as of December 1st, we still had $558 left to do. So this is to appropriate the right amount, and what triggered this, and I apologize that it's coming to you tonight instead of committee of the whole, but we just got the bill, and so we figured we should pay it from Ressler.
Mr. Richards.
But this isn't an actual cost overrun, this is just an accounting measure? It's
No,
more than
this is well within the budget, the project budget that is reported at facilities every month. And there is still $1 million left in the fund.
I'd call it weather-related transaction. Further discussion. Roll call.
Sapp. Yes. Schrader.
Yes.
Smucker. Yes. Wysocki.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Beckett.
Yes.
Benzel. Yes. Betts.
Yes.
Dennett. Gladney.
Yes.
James.
Yes.
Jay.
Yes.
Knott.
Yes.
Kurtz. Langenheim.
Yes.
McGinty.
Yes.
Michaels. Mosier.
Yes.
Nudo.
Yes.
O'Connor.
Yes.
Richards.
Yes.
Rosales.
Yes.
Weibel.
Motion carries.
That's all from
Oh,
finance.
sorry, well, I should say, yes, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McGinty. Policy person appointments, Mr. Betts.
I move adoption of resolution 7434, approving revisions to the Martin Luther King Celebration Awards process. So moved.
Second.
Second by Mr. Rosales. Mr. Beckett.
I move to substitute the resolution approving revisions to the Martin Luther King Celebrations Award process set forth in the blue revised items, and I so move.
Second.
Second by Mr. Betts. If you look at the items of page 1, the change actually mostly just, instead of having the, I think it was the Hoskins-Freiberg Award, it's now the Burgess-Freiberg Award and the Doris Hoskins Award. So just a matter of changing the names of the awards around. But this is based on some late advice from the city of Urbana and the city of Champaign. Discussion.
Could the mover accept it as a friendly amendment?
Sure.
Very good, thank you. Discussion. So we'll be voting on the main motion. No discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Move adoption of Resolution 7435, approving the continuation of the Committee of the Whole structure, and I so move.
Second by Mr. Mosier. Discussion. This is continuation to the end of November. No, these.
Use it.
Oh, this
The
continue.
new
Oh, well.
board would have to change it.
Right.
So it's all the way through the end of this November?
For sure, yes.
Okay,
Well,
I just want to make sure.
You also adopted a rules change, which implements committee of the whole structure, and this doesn't have an end date on it as it's presented.
correct.
You're adopting the
Yeah.
committee of the whole structure for the county board.
Well, I should point out that it can be changed by the next county board.
That's right. That's with all measures. I mean,
Right.
all measures can
Well.
go that way, so this doesn't end in November.
Okay, discussion.
You confused me, Pius, so it doesn't end in November, it continues.
I'm trying to keep you confused, Mr. James.
Thank you.
Discussion. See none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. One item for the addendum, Mr. Betts?
Item D, move adoption of Resolution 7478, designating the month of September as Constitution Month in Champaign County, and I so move.
Second.
Second by Mr. Nada, I believe. Ms. Wysocki.
I was partly responsible for this proclamation, or asking for this proclamation, partly because the Daughters of the American Revolution, which is the group that nationally and locally sponsors, gets behind Constitution Month, is putting forward a traveling exhibit that will be on display at the courthouse during the months of September and October, where they will highlight the origins of the Constitution, and we'll have a number of activities for school-age children and obviously for adults who might visit the foyer right off of the Lincoln exhibit. And this is a way, I think, of recognizing their accomplishments here in the county and their desire to enhance the exhibit capacities of the courthouse.
Mr. Schrader, were you actually the seconder on that motion?
I was trying to throw my voice over the
Well, I heard a voice, I heard it back there, but you were blocked by two other heads at the time, so I'd ask the clerk to point out that Mr. Schrader seconded that motion. Mr. Knott apparently did not. Further discussion, Mr. Sapp.
Well, I appreciate Ms. Wysocki bringing this forward. I think it's outstanding that we're recognizing history and the Daughters of the American Revolution. I actually have a proclamation hanging on my wall at home from them. The thing that I wish we would all pay attention to was the first whereas the Constitution of the United States of America, the guardian of the liberties, embodies the principle of limited government. And I think limited government, unfortunately, gets overseen in our society nowadays. So thank you very much, Ms. Wysocki.
Further discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
I have no further business.
Thank you, Mr. Betts. I believe the last item is closed session. Mr. Beckett, do you have the motion?
I'm the designated mover. I move that we enter into executive session pursuant to 5 ILCS 122C1 to consider the employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of Champaign County. I further move that the following individuals remain present: County Administrator, County's Legal Counsel, County Engineer, Recording Secretary.
Second.
Oh, I'm sorry. Roll call.
Sapp.
Yeah.
Schrader.
Yes.
Smucker. Wysocki.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Beckett.
Yes.
Benzel. Yes. Betts. Yes. Dinitz.
Yes.
Gladney.
Yes.
James. Jay.
Yes.
Knott.
Yes.
Kurtz. Langenheim.
Yes.
McGinty.
Yes.
Michaels.
Yes.
Mosier. Nudo. O'Connor.
No.
Richards.
Yes.
Rosales.
Yes.
Weibel.
Yes, motion carries.
We're going into closed session.